And as we let other people join, if you want to just hop in the chat, let us know kind of where you're calling in from. And we'd also love to know whether you're in sales or marketing. Moby and I were talking about this earlier, and we feel like there's probably going to be a bit of a split. So just love to see, yeah, where you guys.
Yeah, let us know. Let's find out who's the furthest. So I'm in Sydney. You're in Sydney too, Guy. Obviously not originally from Sydney, but you're in Sydney right now.
Indeed, yeah, the accent's a bit of a giveaway there. Originally from York in England, lived in Vancouver prior to coming here. But yeah, nice upgrade to be in the sun by the beach.
Lovely.
I think we've got a WA there.
Oh,
Western Australia is
Megan. Oh, nice to see you. Carl, Sydney. Okay, Perth's the furthest so far.
also super interested to know when the last time you sent or worked on a proposal was. Just seeing how fresh everyone is to proposals. And yeah, seeing how you. Oh, yesterday! Wow, crikey! Hey, Brendan. Gold Coast,
Goldie, nice.
lovely. Melbourne. Oh, awesome! Getting some sales, some marketing. Nice little bit of split there. Team Sydney, Auckland. Oh wow!
Oh, there we go. Okay. But is Auckland further or is Perth further? I'm the worst with geography. Maybe someone can tell us in the chat. I feel
Yeah,
like Perth is further.
in my head it's pretty close, but yeah, don't know. I think
I think
maybe
Tanya reckons Perth. Okay, probably right there.
I don't think
Longer
it's a
flight.
3 hour
Perth.
flight to Auckland and maybe four to Perth, something like that.
There we
Uh,
go. Tells you how little I know about geography. So Perth is still the furthest.
awesome. We'll just give people 1 more minute to join, and then we'll get straight into it. Bay of Plenty NZ. Uh, Not sure where that is, but sounds lovely.
Oh,
Well,
D-Pain. D-Pain from Bupa. Good to see you, my friend.
awesome. Well, I think we'll let everyone else catch up and get going here because we've got a lot of awesome content to get through today. So I'm Guy. I work in product marketing here at Qwilr. For those of you that don't know, Qwilr is a proposal software that lets you effortlessly send super compelling proposals that's going to stand out from the competition, cut through the noise. You're going to see them a little bit in action today. But I'm super excited to be here with Moby. Moby is the CEO of Redpandas Digital. They're an agency based here in Sydney. They do done-for-you digital marketing and lead gen, done-by-you sales coaching, essentially anything HubSpot, generating leads and closing them. Moby's your man. So without further ado, Moby, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to throw it over to you. And if you just want to take us away, I'm very excited for today. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Awesome, guy. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure for me. So it was a no-brainer to do this with you guys because I don't know if we're the first Qwilr customer in Australia, but I know we're one of the oldest. It's good to finally collaborate. All right, cool. So let's get straight into it. There's a lot to cover today. Before I share what I share, you need to understand why it works, right? You need to understand a little bit about how the buying journey has changed and the buying behavior of the prospect. So this number right here, 80%. I think in my mind, it represents the most significant trend in sales over the last 100 years. And this percentage is derived from two very well-respected studies, one from Forrester and Google. And essentially what it represents is this. By the time a prospect speaks to sales, they are already 80% through the buyer's journey. That's before we even know who they are. So Guy, question for you. If we went back in time, 25 years ago when the internet was just getting going, maybe around the time you were born, I don't know, I feel like you're a lot younger than me. And I asked you, what percentage of the buying journey was someone through before they spoke to sales? 25 years ago, what do you think that number was?
I'm going to say 30%.
Yeah, most people say about 30%, 20%. Now, we don't have the data from then, but we do have the data from 10 years ago, and that was 70%, right? So next 10 years, is this number going up or down, Guy?
I think it's going to go up, would be my guess.
It's not going back, right? So the point here is the buyer is more autonomous than they have ever been. Now, if this number is true, and we have every reason to believe that it is, Guy, which department has the greatest impact on the sale? Is it the sales department or the marketing department?
Based off that, it sounds like it would be marketing.
Marketing. And you might be thinking, hey, I thought this was a sales webinar. What type of bait and switch is this? So 100% it is a sales webinar, but why am I even sharing this? What's the whole point? Well, we need to understand that the buyer, again, is more autonomous than they have ever been. And what has worked before is going to reduce in efficacy moving forward. It's going to reduce in its effectiveness. So based on that, there's two things that we really need to be aware of. One, your sales and marketing team need to be aligned, because if we are actually going to need sales and marketing working together to create some of the content that I'll be sharing with you guys today. You need them. And salespeople, marketing needs you. They need your insights because they don't know the prospects like you do. Otherwise, it's just going to be generic, fluffy content that no one likes and respects. And sales won't even share it if sales and marketing are not working together. That's what I've seen. Secondly, we need to take advantage of modern buying behavior. I'll be talking about this a few times today, especially how people research. So, salespeople, it's your responsibility, whether you take it or ignore it, to empower your buyers with the type of content they've already been researching, that they like to research. So, that doesn't mean brochures and PDFs or even a proposal. That's not what I'm talking about. So, I guess the question on everyone's mind now should be is, okay, what type of content does that look like? What type of content should we share? Does it even work? And more importantly, how do we work that into our sales calls? All right, cool. Let's keep going. I want you guys to think about this, right? You can drop it in the chat if you want. You can think about this in your head. But essentially, the question is, how many pages of your website would a potential customer be willing to read before they buy? And what I sort of like thinking about is, more importantly, do you think it would have an impact on the sale? So how many pages do you think a potential customer would be willing to ready to buy? And do you think it will have a potential impact on sales? Now, what we did the research on this, and we compared two groups of people, right? So both groups had filled out a form. This is done on multiple businesses in Australia and in US. Two groups of people. One had filled out a form and actually ended up buying the product. The other group filled out the form and didn't buy the product, right? So as we compared those two different groups and we looked at the differences, the biggest difference was the number of pages that they viewed on the websites. The biggest difference. Guy, do you want to have a crack? What do you think that number was? Just for a bit of fun.
I'm gonna go with 23.
Not bad, not bad at all. I would expect you to know that because you and I catch up a lot. So it's really close, 30, right? 30. So what does that mean? That is the number that came up most often. So not the average. So for any statistic geeks out there, this is known as the mode. The number that came up most often was 30. So if someone read 30 or more pages, check this out, guy. If they read, this is why we care. It's not because we just want to create more pages. If someone read 30 or more pages, they would buy 80% of the time. Now compare that to someone, so this again was the biggest difference between people who bought and didn't buy when they filled out a form. Compare that to someone who only read a few pages, that closing rate was 25%. So you go from 25% to 80% by just consuming more content. I say just lightly, but we're going to talk about what that looks like. So this is what we call assignment selling. That's the first thing I want you guys to walk away with. And if you're making notes, please write this down. This is what assignment selling is. It is using content in the sales process. It's integrating content in the sales process specifically, not just for a newsletter, not for laughs and giggles, to shorten the sales cycle and increase closing rates. That's what assignment selling is. So why this works is when your prospect consumes 30 or more pages, they're more informed. They see you as the authority, not the salesperson. And essentially, that's what assignment selling is all about. How do you move from solving, not selling? That's what it's about. So let's get a little bit more practical. Let's talk about integrating assignment selling in your sales calls, because I'm talking in quite, theoretical terms right now. Let's talk about what that looks like. So let me tell you a quick story. Guy mentioned in the opening, one of the big things we do, we sell HubSpot, right? We sell HubSpot, onboarding, we fix portals, that whole doodah. And I was speaking to a prospect in the sales call, and she spoke about Salesforce, right? So we don't sell Salesforce. That's a competitor. Just like you guys, every software or every product or service has a competitor. And the moment someone says the S word, I don't shy away from it. I don't start talking about why they're so crap. I don't do that. I assignment sell them this piece of content. HubSpot versus Salesforce. Now, Guy, you and I were talking about this before. The funny thing is, you would not believe these are billion-dollar companies, right? At the time, I don't know if this is still true, it probably is. There is not one non-biased piece of content comparing these two by these companies. right? So if you go on HubSpot's website, we've all done this, we've all seen this, right? Whether it's HubSpot or another software you've seen. Qwilr doesn't do this. Qwilr's much better than this, but they'll have a like a table, right? And here are all the features as rows. And then here's a column for Salesforce, and here's a column for HubSpot. And HubSpot gets all the ticks, and Salesforce gets all the crosses. And then you go on Salesforce's website, same things, and the crosses and ticks are the other way around, right? So it's not biased at all. Now, the key thing here is this is about trust. This is about solving. It's not about manipulating people. How do you know something is authentic and it's a good piece of content? Well, a percentage of people have to read this and go with the other option, right? That's how we know this is authentic and it's trustworthy. It can't just be slanted. A bunch of people are going to read this and they're not going to go with us. They'll be like, thank you so much, Moby. We're going to now go ahead with Salesforce. But the people who are a great fit, I'm not wasting time and I'm increasing closing rates, right? So let's talk about like now how, right? Because I know, especially if you're in sales, you're going to want to see how to do this. So this is an email. Hi, we'll call her Jasmine. Hi, Jasmine. Good to catch up after so long. Here's a link to my meeting calendar. Great. Additionally, here are some relevant resources we created for you and your colleagues. You might find them interesting. HubSpot versus Salesforce. There's that link. Guide to migrating from Salesforce to HubSpot, right? So this is assignment selling in action. Now, one key thing, and I'm more than happy to talk about this in the Q&A, it is in the delivery. So it's not like, hey, guy, do you mind if I send you this? Like, is that okay? Would you have a read? No, right? If you've mentioned Salesforce, it's like, hey, guy, what I want you to do is have a read of this because you mentioned you're comparing those two. This is really going to help you, whether you go with us or not, identify what works for you, what doesn't work for you with those two options. Can you do that for me? Right? That wasn't rude, that wasn't aggressive, but my key point there, and I don't want to go too deep on this because of time, is you have to do it with some authority when it comes to sales, right? But anyway, before we move off this slide, I don't know if anyone can see this, but I'll point it out. Notice the opens and the clicks, right? 24 opens and 16 clicks. Now, I know from this prospect who ended up converting as a customer, it was because she was sharing it around with her management team, with her leadership team, the CEO, whatever. So half of them actually read that. So who are they more likely now to go with? Redpandas or a competitor of mine who's not educating them as much? I think it's pretty obvious, right? Cool. So let's keep on going. Let's talk about why this works before we move off. Again, that's why I started with 80%. This mirrors modern buyer research behavior. They're already doing this. Like you're not like when you throw a brochure or a proposal, you're shifting their brain from research mode to someone's trying to sell me something mode. This is a continuation and you're trying to actually capture that last 20% of their buyer's journey. This also works from an SEO perspective, but we're not talking about that today. But the point is it does mirror a modern research buying behavior. You can imagine, Guy, this saves an incredible amount of time. An incredible amount of time. One, because it's done, it's well researched. But two, if you're listening, not everyone in your sales team is the same level of education. So, the chips are kind of stacked against them in some way. All they really need to do is to know, listen, do their discoveries, and know how to position to send this stuff. They don't need to become complete because they're not. Not everyone's the same level of expertise. We would love to have that, but they're not, right? And again, finally, you're seen as the teacher. You're solving, not selling. And this is why this stuff works so, so, so well. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about video now. So before I get into this, Guy, I want to ask you another question. Like, say you're selling to a prospect, right? And the solution you've pitched is significantly more expensive than the alternative. But you did a great job. Like you built rapport and with your point of contact, your POC, you sold the value proposition. You've done such a good job, but they're not the decision maker, or at least it doesn't rest in their totality. It's not all their decision. They need to share it with their manager. So question for you, Guy, is what could go wrong?
Some of the nuance of how you've positioned it, as you say, your tools may be significantly more expensive. Like some of that why behind that could get lost in translation there, and you may lose out.
How well are they going to communicate your value proposition to their boss as well as you did to them?
Yeah, it's not going to be the same.
Right? It's not going to be the same. We've been through this. We've seen this before. So let's talk about what that looks like, right? So this is a client of mine, sales, a long-term client. Shout out to Penrith Solar if you guys are here. We do a whole bunch of stuff with them, but sales coaching, all this stuff is part of what we did with them. And one of the things that I trained them on doing is sending proposals and using video in their proposals. Now, if you guys can see, again, you guys will get the slides, so don't worry if you can't see everything here. But in my mind, this is as close to perfect as a template for a proposal email as I've ever seen before. It might tweak a little bit because it's your industry, but it's very close. So what does it look like? Hey, Michael, as promised, here you go, boom. And then like the proposal link is there. It's a little bit bigger. It's very distinct. It's very clear what to do next. I've also included a 3-minute video breaking down the key takeaways. And then you can see here, my mate Charles is there. You can't see this because it's an animated GIF, but in the animated GIF, he's actually doing a wave and that comes up in the email. The key thing here is to have that animated. So if we use Loom, I do recommend Loom. Vidyard does something very, very similar. It doesn't matter what you use, but embed the GIF because it's animated and you see a bit of motion and that does something. And then it's got here, of course, we've got some assignment selling here. Below are some articles we discussed earlier, string versus microsystems, which one's right for you? I'm assuming the customer brought that up, and benefits of adding a battery to your system. And then next steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. Guy, really simple, right? Really simple, what you can see here. The biggest things that I find when I start working with clients is the amount of crap we give. Like, yeah, but this is important, but this is important, this is important. Yeah, but how much of that could you maybe put in a video? How much of that could you put in an article? How much of that can you drip feed? Especially if you have a CRM, could you drip feed some of that? And the answer is never none of it. It's always some of it. You could always optimize some of it. Now, here are some key considerations. Now, obviously, we don't have time to go over the video, but stay to the end. We're going to have a QR code for you. I will actually share an example of a video, and you can look at the structure of what that video looks like. But some things I just want to mention now. Don't waffle and don't do a proposal walkthrough. What does that mean? So I've done this so often, and I've trained so many people to know that when I first start training this, what they start doing is like, hey, guy, here's page 1, and here's page 2, and here's page. Don't do that. They can read, right? You don't do that. So point out, I literally will say, and I believe this is in the video example you guys will get as well. Hey, Guy, such a pleasure to catch up. 2, 3 key things I want to talk about. 1, XYZ, because you mentioned, something about payment terms. 2, the onboarding plan, what's that looks like. And 3, commercials. And then you get straight into it, right? This one I love here. Start strong and what they'll walk away with. The best example I can give you is if you ever see YouTubers, maybe some of you guys have better things to do than watch YouTubers. But one thing you'll notice that they do, they'll be like, in this video, you're going to learn da 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 da. Like they do this whole thing. Like what's the takeaway you're going to get? So take a page out of their book and do that. Start strong. By the end of this video, you're going to know, what your options are, what the onboarding thing looks like, and whether this is right for you, whatever, right? But think like a YouTuber in that regard. I mentioned embedding the video GIF because we have seen there's a big percentage increase in click-through rates, and always have a call to action at the end, right? So simple, but always have a call to action. What's next? What are you going to do next? What do they need to do next? What decisions do they need to make? That whole thing. Finally, assignment cell, what's relevant? I underline this to remind me, it's not assignment cell if relevant. It's assignment cell what's relevant, right? There is never a case where there's nothing for you to assignment sell. The only reason why you shouldn't be assignment selling is because marketing or someone in the business hasn't created that piece of content yet. It's about doing a really solid discovery, understanding their value drivers, what they actually care about, probing, and then sending them that. So it's not if relevant, it's what relevant. And again, in the goodies that we'll give away at the end, we'll share some examples of some things that can get you started, right? Can get you started in terms of examples of what you should assignment sell. Cool. All right. Now, let's get straight into a little bit of a quick demo. We did promise this will be very, very practical. So that's what we're going to do. Let's talk about proposals and what they look like. So Guy's going to show us some amazing things, but I want to specifically show you guys an example of what we do. So if I jump into this screen share and I jump into this, here we go. Cool. So you can see here right at the top. So it's like a website, right? It's like a web page. And I think, we're in digital, but it doesn't matter what industry you're in. One thing you'll hear me saying around Redpandas, pageantry is everything. How you sell is like as important as what you sell. The experience in what you sell is as important. So here you can see a bit of a video. Sometimes I like doing, if I have a prospect and they have a YouTube channel, I'll use their videos because you can just take a YouTube embed code and put it in the background. That looks really cool. But Qwilr's got like a bunch of standard motion videos as well. So this is just a standard one. I love starting with, and Guy's going to share something really, really cool as well, but I do something very similar. Start with some problems, what we're looking to achieve. They can obviously download. And then pretty much your business process, right? This is a Google Ads quote. So we talk about what the audit's going to look like, what the strategy is, what we're going to do. So this is what we call future pacing, right? What your first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, what your process is going to look like, pricing breakdowns, it goes on, right? Do whatever you want. And then what I love is this is it has a digital e-signature, so it's like legally compliant and DUDA, all that whole thing. But there is a button here where they can accept, and there's a nice trail, and I can add case studies, terms and conditions. So really, really cool stuff. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because it is dependent on your business, but I love the idea of starting with takeaways, problems, and your value proposition. And the stats are really, really cool as well. So this is one of my favorite things. So if I literally go here, this is a different quote entirely. And this is a bit an older quote, so I can go back here. But I can see here 42 views, average of 1 minute. The interactions, one of them was close. And what I notice, and this is just common sense, if you think about it, as the views start going up, the prospect's getting hotter and hotter. They're more likely to close. I can see when they opened it. I can see where they opened it from, Canberra, Melbourne. Wow, these guys have a diverse team. Ryde, Pennant Hills, and also the sections that were most important to them. So really, really cool stuff. Your thoughts on that, Guy? I think we're kicking over to, yes, we are. So now we'll kick it over to Guy, and Guy will talk to us about some proposal plays that help close deals and based on a lot of the data that they have and they've seen.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be taking you through 5 proposal plays that close. Qwilr's been around for 10 years. We've had 4 billion closed contracts closed through Qwilr. And these plays just come through some of what our top performing customers and their top performing reps are sending out. Going to be using a fictional example as if someone was sending a proposal from Monday.com. It's a project management tool, some fictional folks, some fictional numbers, but it illustrates the points really nicely. So I'll dive straight in with lead with problems. So at the beginning of your proposal, Moby touched on it there. You want to start by articulating your prospects' problems back to them in their own words. And later on, you're going to show how your solution can help their team address this. So there was something that some of you may have picked up on there, but Moby mentioned solving, not selling. And this is super key because buying committees these days are getting bigger and bigger. You might have spoken to a load of folks, but there's going to be a heap more people behind the scenes who are going to be looking at this proposal. And you want to grab their attention and show them why they should care. You know, they're going to be inundated with stuff. You need to show them why they should read your proposal, buy the right for them to read on by leading with a problem that's facing their business. And there's a really good way that you can do this. Got an example here. It's articulating this problem using members of their team that you have spoken to. So as you can see here, we've got a quotation from Emily Taylor, Senior Brand Manager. She's talking about spending too long on project admin. We've got Marcus Jensen down here. He's talking about projects feeling disjointed. And this shows the reader that the team is bought into this problem. There's a problem that's specific to their organization. It's not just a generic problem. It's not a generic deck. It's not a generic proposal that you're sending them. No, this is specific to their organization, their team. Their team has identified this problem, not you, the seller. It's coming from their team, and you're going to provide them that specific solution. It also frames the problem for these invisible buyers. Some of them may not be as across what this problem is. They may be aware that there's something going wrong, but hearing the specifics from their team kind of puts them in a tricky situation where either they don't believe their team that there's a problem, which would be odd. They don't want to solve their team's problem, which no good leader would want to do, or they're going to want to find a solution. And that's what you're doing with the rest of your proposal. So this is just a great way to grab attention, kick things off, ground people in the issue, and then later on, you're going to show how you solve that. So play number 2 is make it easy to buy. You want to use graphics, collapsible sections, other interactive elements to guide them through the offer, letting them kind of choose their own adventure. This is super important in reducing friction. As Moby mentioned, like people are getting inundated with so much information, it can be hard to pull out the relevant pieces. You want to just make that so easy for them. And there's going to be different people who are interested in different things. You want to give them control, flexibility, and particularly when that comes to the pricing and the package that's right for them. which I'll come to in a second, but here's just an example of what this might look like. If we're monday.com, we've got a recording of the demo, we've got a sample project board, and we've got an overview of monday.com. What you're seeing here is super uncluttered screen. There's not anything to distract from the pertinent information, and people who are in different stages of the buying journey can pull out different pieces for them. So people who are in the demo probably don't need to see a recording of the demo. They might just want to see the sample project board. There might be someone who hasn't seen the demo. They want to see the demo. There might be someone who's not been across this at all. They have no idea what monday.com is. Give them the overview. You're just letting people skim where they want to, but also dig into the detail where they want to. You're letting them choose their adventure, let them move through your proposal, and you're reducing friction, which just makes it easier to get to that yes. Similarly, when it comes to pricing, you can lay things out like this in Qwilr, but you can give them a range of options which allow them to clearly see what your offer is. It makes it easy for them. So, you can easily see what's in each of these packages. It's very easily and clearly laid out. But it also gives them the opportunity to nuance the offer themselves. So you might have spoken about 11 users, but maybe there's been some last minute budget changes. They're going to have to move on to the basic plan. They're going to come down onto 5 users. Just lets them find the package that's right for them. There's no option here of don't sign. No, we've identified that there's a problem. We need to solve the problem. It's just a case of finding the package that's right for you. It's also a great opportunity to upsell. You may have been talking about the standard package the whole time, but maybe there's a pro plan, maybe time tracking, private boards, chart views. Those are all really important. Suddenly you've upsold, you're selling when you're not in the room, and you're just making it easy for them to navigate your offer their way. Moving on to 3, it's just making it relevant. You want to be personalizing your proposals beyond the basic, your logo, their logo, your name, their name. No, you want to take it a step further and just make sure that it's super relevant all through the proposal. So you want to identify their industry, the needs and challenges of that industry, and clearly signpost how this proposal is relevant for them. Again, here's what this might look like. So if I'm selling to Puma, for example, as monday.com, I'm going to pull in a quotation from fictional Tom Norris, marketing director of Nike. They're going to recognize the Nike name. They're going to see sportswear industry front and center. Hey, this is an organization that looks like us, or one that we want to emulate. If it works for them, it'll probably work for us. Similarly, when it comes to including logos, it can be so tempting to just include your biggest customer. Maybe you've worked super hard to get them. You're very proud that they're a customer, but your biggest customer might mean absolutely nothing to the person on the other end of the screen. So ensure that you're using logos that are going to mean something to them, again, to just let them know, hey, it works for these guys, it's probably going to work for you. Number 4 is keep it simple. You want to avoid jargon, and you want to use visuals to simplify complex ideas and just make it a painless process from start to finish, helping your champion position your proposal internally. So Moby touched a little bit on this as well. But what we've seen a lot of people do is once the champion's on board, taking them through the proposal and saying, like, is this something your CMO would be interested? Your CEO, does she typically like to see these things here? Your CFO, what would he make of this? Work with them to nuance your proposal so that it's going to appeal to that bigger buying committee. And then work with your champion and sit down with them and say, hey, how are you going to position this internally? They may not be a seller, they may need a little bit of coaching, and you're just there to keep it simple for them, reducing the friction, making it painless for them, easier to get to that yes. Speaking of these buying committees again, jargon is something that can be really tempting to include. You want to show that you understand the industry, show off all of your knowledge. You might know the jargon, your champion might know the jargon, 90% of the buying committee might know the jargon, but there could always be that one person who doesn't. And if you're going to lose them in the weeds with technical language, it's very easy for them to say no. So avoid jargon, keep things simple, and similarly use visuals to simplify complex ideas. So I've got an example of what this would look like. If you're on monday.com, you want to show someone, hey, this is the amount of money and time that you're spending on admin. But that can be a little bit hard to communicate, particularly if they've got some big project coming up and that's going to move up to 60. These interactive sliders just show them exactly what the cost is on what they're currently spending on admin per year, and then pitching that against your tool saying, hey, you'd actually be saving money coming with us. Again, you're letting people have that control and they can understand it in their way. But something like this would just be really hard to articulate. You'd have to hit them with a variety of situations, walls of text. You're going to lose people there. If a picture paints 1,000 words, something like this may paint a million, but just really good to include visuals. It can't, if you're not using Qwilr, if you want to use images, charts, infographics, just bringing visuals into your presentation, into your proposal, to simplify some of those more complex ideas. Number 5, and maybe my favorite, is using proposal analytics and notifications to ensure that your follow-ups are timely and relevant. So Moby, I don't know about you, but I think the worst email potentially that anyone can ever receive is, hey, just following up, have you read my proposal? That sucks. It shows that you're not necessarily engaged with where they are in the cycle. You're potentially setting yourself on the back foot, and there's much better alternatives that you can do. So proposal analytics is a great way to make sure that these follow-ups aren't that, and can be a lot more relevant and help you move the deal forward. So as you can see here, maybe teased a little bit of this, but in Qwilr's analytics, you can see exactly who was in the proposal. You're uncovering that buying committee, gives you an opportunity to get in touch with some of these folks. I can say, hey, Tanya Smith, you were only in the proposal for 24 seconds. Was there something that put you off? Or conversely, Avery Collins, you were in there for nearly 5 minutes. Looks like you were loving it. Like, was there any sections that stood out to you? Do you have any questions? Just gives you something that you can follow up with that isn't just, have you seen it? You can also take this a step further with Qwilr. You can see exactly which portions of the proposal they were looking at, which again makes your follow-up much more relevant. So in this case, I can see that they were in the project investment for 47 seconds. They're in the saving estimate for 30 seconds. This tells me this is someone who's interested in the numbers. So when I can see who that is, aligning this data with the person, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Dusty Martin, I saw you were looking at the project investment for 47 seconds there. How are those numbers looking to you? Do we need to have a conversation? That's a lot better than just have you open my proposal. The final thing I'll touch on here is just with Qwilr, notifications supercharge this. So you can get a notification in the moment that tells me, hey, Moby has just looked at my project investment. I'll give him a call now in that moment while it's fresh. So in the legacy way, when you're just following up and saying, hey, have you looked at this? They may have looked at the savings estimate 3 days ago. They've completely forgotten what the numbers are. It's not top of mind. This notifications and analytics allow you to strike while the iron's hot and just keep the deal moving forward and getting you towards that close. So hopefully that was really useful. As Moby said, we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. Feel free to provide any questions in the chat then or now. And Moby, I'm going to throw it back over to you to close us out here.
Cool. Thank you, Guy. There's definitely some questions here, so let's definitely get back to them at the end. Don't go away anywhere. But why I really love this, it's something that we're talking about before, right? Like how you sell is a proxy of your quality to the customer. Right? Like often, especially like everything's getting so much more commoditized. So like the pageantry that this includes is phenomenal. And the other thing too, Guy, you mentioned a really good point, like having different sections for different industries. You can save them as modules. So, if you do healthcare or if you do education, you can have these modules that are very similar, but it's a little bit different. So absolutely. So let's actually talk about like taking that further, right? Like taking that pageantry further and what does that actually look like and using automation. So you guys are really lucky because I've been using this for years and we didn't have this stuff before, right? Some of these automation features. So like recent, and I don't know when, Guy, you could probably tell us, but recently Qwilr has come out with some amazing automation features. There's too many to list, but I want to talk about my favorite one. And, in that whole vein of pageantries, right? So this is just in the back end of Qwilr in the automation section, and it's a very simple one. And essentially what it's saying is when a page is accepted by the client, so when they hit that accept button, the example that you might have seen in my one, is in HubSpot. Now, maybe you can do this in other systems. Obviously, I'm very HubSpot heavy, so I know HubSpot. But when that happens in HubSpot, update the deal pipeline stage to closed one. And you can see here all my deal stages are synced perfectly, beautifully. And when someone accepts it, I want in HubSpot, I want that deal to move into closed one. So let's talk about it. That's step one. What can we do from there, right? So check this out. Customer accepts Qwilr proposal. They hit accept. The CRM automatically updates that to closed one. And on that record, it actually attaches the proposal, right? And this is really important for a lot of industries and not even a compliance thing. It's nice to have in one place the proposal so everyone can see, right? The CRM then notifies the production team, so the people who've got to do the work, your accounts team to send the invoice, and also the client. The client gets an automatic welcome email. Obviously, this is a HubSpot thing, but I'm just talking about what once you actually start integrating Qwilr with a CRM, what it can do, the client then gets an automated email with a welcome email. And, we love video, right? So it'll be something like, hey, Guy, congrats. Can't wait to get started. Here are some next steps. When people buy, the time for you to connect is really, really important. You need to shorten that time as soon as they give you your money, because that's when the trust game begins. So you can start doing this stuff. Now, here's the thing. Conservatively, if you had to do all of that, that's 3-4 hours of work. That's a fair bit of work, conservatively. So not only does this save hours in admin, but it delights the customer in the process. And before I go any further, I want to just kind of address something, because sometimes, especially I guess, certain, people who I speak to a lot of different businesses. A lot of people are like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And then every so often I'll get someone who's like, oh, we don't like automation. It takes away the human. It's not human. Guy, how's this not human? Do you know what I mean? How is this not human? People say that, but ultimately everyone uses Uber, or, they use Amazon. We like automation when it's valuable and helpful to us. And that's why you can add human elements to it. You add a video to it. It's still showing the customer hey, we got our stuff together and this is how we're doing things. So I think I think we're coming close to the end. I just have 5 keys to my last slide here, 5 keys to success to wrap all of this up, to make it all work. Is you need buy-in from top to bottom. So you need someone in the C-suite. You need someone to actually be ready for a lot of this stuff. And I'm talking about everything. I've seen this before where, clients have, okay, one person's doing one-to-one video and one person's doing this and no one else is, because there was no buy-in from top to bottom. If you don't get top buy-in, the 1 or 2 people doing it, they're going to lose interest because no one cares and no one else is going to copy it. And left to right, that means sales and marketing, right? So when you get buy-in from top to bottom, then you get buy-in from sales and marketing, horizontally. So that's really, really important. The right content created consistently. This stuff, it doesn't work very well if there's not a culture of creating content. So if you just do 4 or 5, yeah, it might help you. Of course, it's going to help you. But the content only gets better over time. The content I'm assignment selling to prospects now isn't the same content I did a year ago. The content's getting better. So that's why we actually coach clients on how to do this, how to create that type of content that they can use and also ranks, and do that consistently. So that's really, really important. Sales team training. Now, I've done this long enough to know that if you start doing this, you're going to get frustrated because they're not doing it the right way, or they're not doing it this way or that way. There needs to be training. Salespeople, it's a really busy job. It's one of the toughest jobs in the business. They need that training to know how to use one-to-one video, to know how to use content. You can't expect them just to get it, because they won't. Use the right tools, obviously, and you can't manage what you can't measure. So I don't care if you're using HubSpot or not, Salesforce or whatever it is, but if you don't have the tools to measure it, you're not going to see whether one-to-one videos have an impact on your close rates. You're not going to be able to see that 30 number I spoke about, more people visiting, because if you see that, that gives you buy-in into the business to get more resources to continue doing that. And things will just fall over and you won't know whether it had an impact or not. So that's that. We're going to kick it to Q&A very, very soon. I think Guy will share this again, but take a screenshot of this, scan that QR code. There's also a website there, bit.ly/Qwilr x Redpandas. And as promised, you'll get not only the slide deck, an actual example of a one-to-one videos that you can play and watch that I've sent to a client, assignment selling ultimate guide, and types of content that you can actually use in the assignment selling process. So Guy, I'll kick it to you, but I guess now, straight to questions and final thoughts from yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That was amazing, super useful. And yeah, we're definitely open to a Q&A. I can see some in the chat. We've also got Tanya Clark with us, who's Qwilr's head of product marketing. But yeah, feel free to fire some in. Moby, it looks like there's one there for you that's just popped down at the bottom. So we'll start with that one. Moby, can you discuss how you adjust your template to reflect different pain points, goals, needs of the customer? Am I right that there would be different templates for different types of clients?
Yeah, good question, Eric. It's definitely, and this is something that Guy was talking about. Let's give it a bit more air. It's definitely a balance of too much customization, versus something that's quite standard. You don't want something too standard because the customer's not going to feel it. And if you customize everything, it's going to take you hours to do a proposal. So in terms of the start is always very different, right? And doesn't matter how you do it. Guy and I shared some really good examples. I've actually been doing something Guy's been doing, is starting with their quotes. And I love that. Like the customer just feels heard. So that first part, the executive summary, it's like, okay, this is what needs to be true. This is the problems we need to solve. So that part should absolutely be adjusted. And then I think your next step, I mean, it's how long is a piece of string, right? But the next step would be customizing by industry. So like if you're very, very heavy in one particular sector, you might actually use their term. Like for example, we do a lot of education. So instead of customer journey, it says student journey. Instead of this type of case study, it's got a RTO example. So I would start with the intro. The one-to-one video also makes it a bit more personal because you're pointing at certain things. And then I would look at sector rotation. And then from there, it's really up to you. Hopefully that helps.
I'm sure it does. We've got another one here from Kelvin, which I'd be super interested. I certainly have a couple of thoughts myself, but Kelvin asks, how many pages is too many pages?
What do you think, Guy? Might get you to start with that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best answer in the world, but it's really depending on what it is that your proposal is covering. It depends kind of where you are in the cycle. How many pages you include really depends how much information you've given them at this point, whether you're needing to refresh folks, how big your buying committee is. I would say, obviously, brevity is always great, but you also don't want to miss out on pertinent piece of information. And that's just where that making it easy. My number 2 slide there, where I showed you kind of starting alongside the videos, just make it easy for people to navigate. I'm not sure if you're a Qwilr user, but if you are, I would highly recommend using things like accordions and buttons to link people out. But in terms of like a net page number, pretty hard to give you a kind of figure there, I'm afraid.
You make a really good point about brevity. There's a principle that reminds me of in sales, and this is a universal sales principle, and that is that people will judge you on the average of what you share, not the sum of what you share. So if you're speaking to a prospect and you're like, okay, there's 3 things they really care about, like this, 1, 2, 3, that is far better than sharing 5 things they really care about, 2 things they're a bit mediocre about, and 1 thing they don't give a damn about. It's far better just to share the 3. So you're not wrong there. Like whatever is the most important thing for them, brevity is going to be really key. And guys, this is why one-to-one video works, because even if it's a bit longer, what Guy might care about is going to be different to what someone else might care about. And in that one-to-one video, I'm going to make sure I point those things out.
That's great. I've just seen there's one pop down at the bottom. How do you get the LI info of the people who viewed your proposal? That is one of our enterprise features. So I'm not sure whether you're a business or enterprise user, but yeah, it's on our enterprise plan there.
I love Curtis's question. I really like that question. So
Yeah,
Curtis is saying, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that, Curtis. Question, how important is the quality of the video, phone versus proper AV equipment? Thanks again, both. So in the example that you'll see, hopefully when you guys, I think this will be sent to you guys as well, but you can access it immediately if you've got the QR code. It is just a Loom video. It's just using my webcam. So it's pretty like in the start, you're gonna if you're a little bit vain like me and I care what my hair looks like, you'll be like, it's not perfect, whatever. But after that you get over yourself and you just make it as raw as possible. One final thing I'll say with Penrith Solar, because that is a consumer market, I even get them to use their mobile phones. Specifically, I get them to use mobile phone videos for follow-ups. It's like, hey Curtis, man, we had a great conversation the other day. I'm, waiting on you were gonna do ABC. Let me know how you went with that. So like raw is gonna be better. You don't need AV. You don't even need a mic like this. Just need a bit of light and use your webcam. That's all.
awesome. Yeah, I'm seeing one here from Eva, who says, do you feel that people have become click phobic because they know that we're tracking them? I would say no. I mean, there doubtless are some people who may be in their head about this, but for the most part, when you're sending a proposal, they don't necessarily know that they're being tracked. I mean, they might have a supposition. Some people may know, some people won't. But I don't think it's going to have people, that's not going to be putting people off your proposal. You mentioned that you find that a lot of your proposals don't get opened. I think suggestions like Moby's one-to-one video, that kind of thing, are a good way to encourage that open. I don't know if you had anything to add there, maybe.
No, spot on. There's always going to be a trade-off. Actually, even with PDFs these days, if you send a PDF, there's ways to track what page people viewed in a PDF. So they don't really know. Obviously, at this point, there's a compelling value proposition, so they should click it. What was the final thing in terms of clicks? How you structure that proposal email is really, really important. I think using video is really, really important as well. And little things like in the subject line, if you use the word name, so if I use Guy, comma, video for you pertaining your XYZ, as opposed to your proposal, using the name and the word video is statistically proven to increase open rates and click rates as well. So little things like that.
Yeah. We've got another one here. How much of the sale would you have done before you hit them with the proposal? It's a great question.
I'd be curious to know what industry this is because it does vary per industry. But typically, I think in more complex industries, so that doesn't mean just B2B, it could be education, could be solar, home improvement services. The typical process is you're doing a discovery, you need to do a really good job of see, when you start doing things like what Guy's talking about, you have the problems and you have the quotes, you're forced to then ask questions. You're forced to walk away with problems. Don't just start pitching right away. So once you get that, like I don't do any pitching in a first call. I'm just there for the customer. I'm actually just trying to see whether we can help them or not. So getting out all their problems and then I'm pitching next time. And me personally, just my industry, again, I'd love to know what industry you're in, but I'm doing the discovery, then I'm doing a bit of a presentation, like I call it a solution design. And then after that, I'm sending a proposal and that's just a formality.
Awesome. I've got one here from JJ who says, have you got a sample of a more content-heavy proposal, let's say for a management consulting pitching C-level? I don't have anyone on hand. On the Qwilr website, there's a ton of templates that you can look at, some of which are more content-heavy. As I recommended earlier, when it comes to content-heavy stuff, just making sure that it's easy to navigate is so key. You don't want to just be hitting people with loads and loads of information, not letting them pick which parts are pertinent to them. Bury them in buttons, accordions if you're a Qwilr user, but really just make it easy for them to navigate the pieces of content that are going to be right for them. If you're pitching C-suite, chances are you're going to have a mix of sort of needing to get really into the nitty-gritty with some folks and big picture with others. Just make sure it's super signposted which content's relevant for each people. But as I say, on the Qwilr website, there's a ton of templates, hundreds that you can take a look at, and hopefully you can find one that suits your needs.
Like 10 seconds on this one from me. If it's management consultancy, I think you guys can get the recording. That length that I had in that example that I shared, it shouldn't be longer than that.
I'm just flicking through here to see if there are any that I have missed. Sorry, just reading this out loud. What feedback have you had from customers when including this information, whether positive or negative? Just following up.
I think Logan's talking there about, the analytics and sharing that with them, I think. If you don't mind, really, really quickly, my view on that is it depends on what you're selling. The benefit Logan has, the benefit Guy has and I have, we're selling softwares that the value prop of them is tracking. So if I say to a client, like, it depends on the client too, if someone's a bit uptight, I'm not going to do this. But I'm like, hey, Logan, by the way, I can see from HubSpot or Qwilr that, you opened it at this time, whatever. It'd be really cool for you to do that with your clients. That's going to impress you, but that's not going to impress like a solo client. So you got to be really careful about that. So my opinion personally, and Guy, feel free to disagree, I wouldn't talk about that. I wouldn't talk about, oh, I noticed you were on this one or this page or whatever. But because I have that information, I can use that in questions. I can be like, hey, Logan, so your thoughts, I know who the team is will be working. I sense that's important to you or something. My view anyway.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's one of the things very situational, as Moby said. But typically we hear people have great feedback on this because you're saving, ultimately everyone's looking to have the best experience they can. They don't want to be asked, have you seen it? Which portions have you seen? You're just cutting straight to the chase, which is just improving the experience for them. They don't have to give you a load of information to context set of where they're at in the proposal. You're just immediately able to jump right in and be like, hey, pricing, saw you were on it for a good amount of time. How's that looking? That can work in some instances, or as Moby said, you can just kind of take the more subtle approach and just, not say, hey, saw you're in it for a while, but just say, hey, how's that pricing looking? They don't need to know, but sometimes it can be really good of just cutting to the chase and saying, I saw you're in there. Maybe you've been talking about proposals for some time. You've been talking about the different sections. They'll know that you're going to be tracking them, in which case can be totally fine to cut to the chase.
Many moons ago, I was working for someone, and my boss at the time said to the prospect, and she freaked out. She freaked out. She's like, "Oh, you opened it at 11 o'clock at night," and she's like, what else do you know I did?" And you could just see the color in her face change, and I'm like, "Oh, she made a mistake." So like, that's always kind of scared me. So yeah, you're right, guy. Yeah, talk to what you need to talk to.
And definitely, yeah, tread lightly where applicable. What's your advice for how to best tackle pricing objections? Is it that comparative pricing? Maybe I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, but just on the comparative pricing, yeah, I think it's a great way to kind of objection handle and let them almost objection handle for themselves. Because if it feels too expensive, they're able to see what it looks like on a lower tier with fewer seats, or if it's they're just able to basically navigate it themselves. And so the objection is handled by them almost if you've got this stage, but maybe I'd love to hear anything else that
Oh, spot on, man. Spot. I think just the fact of having comparative pricing, it does take away the likelihood they will object to price. Um, I do training. I could speak 2 hours about pricing objections. So like we can't do that today. But I will say that like the fact that you have it there, it beats them to the punch of saying, "Oh, well, guy, I don't need this. Like, can it be cheaper?" Well, yeah, you can check it out online. Like it's all there essentially. But that does take away a lot of the pushback that you would otherwise get.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one here that I absolutely love from Brad. He says, what about video testimonials in the proposal from relevant companies? Good idea, great idea. Video, great way of transferring information. And obviously those relevant companies, if they're singing your praises, it's likely that your buyer is going to, again, see that. If it works for them, it works for me. So yeah, great idea. I believe that's covered off everything that I am able to see. If you had a question and I've missed it, if you wouldn't mind just popping it to the bottom. There's just been a good amount in the chat. But I think we're coming to the end of the questions. I'll just pop the goodies QR code back on screen for anyone who missed it the first time round. But if you do have any more questions, feel free to fire away.
Bit.ly. I'll also throw in the URL, Qwilr X Redpandas. So hopefully that works, guys. But yeah, definitely check it out. I share a lot of my content on LinkedIn as well, so feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I talk about a lot of this stuff all the time. But thank you so much, guys. Looks like we've got a lot of engagement. Most of you guys stayed to the end, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate everyone's time. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with the Qwilr team. There's a link down in the goodies section for how you can get in touch with us, or just connect with me or the team on LinkedIn. But thank you so much for your time. Hope it was useful, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.